Good evening and compliments of the season as we welcome you to another interesting edition of the program Service to Humanity, your window into the activities of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, as well as our agencies as it carries out its mandate. I am Habiba Zakzak, your regular anchor. From our last episode, we started a special review series around milestone achievements of the Humanitarian Ministry to measure the impact and successes of the ministry as it delivers on the objective of its establishment. Tonight, we shall continue with the review, this time concentrating on how the ministry executed a very important assignment given to it, the task of coordinating relief provision during the COVID-19 lockdown of 2020. After that, we shall be looking at the Npower NTech training of youth and computer software and hardware repairs and development, which is taking place in Abuja. Details of this and more coming your way shortly in the course of the program. Please stay tuned.
Rayuwa an dan sha matsala amma tun da abin ya zo hannu muna jujjuya sana'o'inmu har kayan kulle-kulle ma duk mukan yi. Kuma a cikin haka sai Allah ya fifita kowa ya samu dan abin harkoki ina yi gishiri magi dukkan muna kullawa har barkono duk muna kullawa har barkono ma mu daka shi mai yajin shi duk ana kullawa da mun gode Allah mun yaba annabi tunda wannan tallafi izo muna mai aya komai da komai yayi tarihi ko sosai tunda dukkan muna musu wannan mu kai makarantar nan ka dinka ka sake ma yaro mun gode gwamnati mun gode mata Allah ya sa kuma ta gama lafiya.
Glad to have you stay tuned. The program begins with the Management Diary, where we bring you news on recent happenings in the Humanitarian Ministry as well as from her agencies. This and more coming your way shortly. Don't go away.
Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajiya Sadiya Umar Farouk, has said that the gains of the National Social Investment Programme (NSIP) will be lost if the initiative is not institutionalized through the creation of an agency. Farouk, who was represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Dr. Nasir Sanugwarzo, stated this during a public hearing held by the Senate Committee on Special Duties as part of its routine legislative activities preparatory to the final consideration and approval of the National Social Investment Establishment Bill 2022 by the Red Chamber. According to Farouk, the establishment of the agency is long overdue.
If we make the mistake of not creating an agency out of this good work that has been done or put in place, we are likely to lose this goodwill. I therefore openly and strongly, with a big voice, I wish my voice was louder than this. It's loud enough. Thank you. I would have spoken to the top of my voice to say that we need this agency yesterday, not even today. We need it to make sure that the good work is established, is consolidated, and it is inherited by the next administration. I therefore declare on behalf of the minister and on behalf of myself and the entire ministry and the millions of beneficiaries, our unalloyed support for the creation of this agency.
In his opening remark, Senate President Ahmed Lawan, who was represented by Senator Aliyu Sabi, Deputy Whip of the Senate, noted that the measure falls under the group of ideas intended to strengthen Nigeria's institutional capacity to assist citizens in achieving societal stability and advancement.
It is tailored towards consolidating a program through a robust regulatory mechanism that is resilient and could stand the test of time given the ever-increasing challenges and realities. The social order is dynamic and requires us to regularly initiate programs and policies that will respond to new developments especially when they are for the benefit of the mass of the people. The Senate has considered the bill at the first and second readings, where the main concept was debated, but now needs the input of stakeholders like yourself here present.
The National Senior Citizens Center (NSCC) and the Federal Ministry of Health have signed a Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) regarding the creation of a national action plan for older people in the Nigerian healthcare industry. The event took place in Abuja over the course of a 3-day stakeholder sensitization program and expert group meeting on development of national benchmark statement and minimum standards for training caregivers and care agencies and facility service operators in Nigeria towards certification, organized by NSCC. Speaking at the event, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajiya Sadiya Umar Farouk, represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Dr. Nasir Sani Gwarzo, stated that this would be the first time Nigeria is considering a benchmark statement and minimum standards in national curriculum for training caregivers to older persons towards certification. She noted that multi-sectoral programs and services are needed to meet the needs of older persons, including health, well-being, income security, capacity building, and age-friendly services. Speaking earlier in her welcome address, Director General of the NSCC, Dr. M.M. Omokaro, stated that majority of senior care is provided by families in Nigeria, like in the majority of sub-Saharan African nations. She added that in Nigeria, the population of senior citizens is steadily expanding. From the 14.8 million in 2019, the most recent NBS poll from 2022 shows a growth of 2 million. Therefore, organized care services are needed to ensure older people receive the care they need and live with dignity, with a shift to palliative and long-term care.
Welcome back. For over 3 years now, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has been on its toes, developing humanitarian policies, coordinating national and international humanitarian interventions, and fighting poverty, among others, all for the benefit of the poor and vulnerable Nigerian. Tonight, in continuation of our special review series around the successes and achievements of the Humanitarian Ministry, we shall be looking at the COVID-19 response by the Ministry to cushion the effect of the pandemic on the common Nigerian. Don't go away.
Alleviating the impact of the COVID-19 crisis was vital for preventing poverty from deepening and increasing in Nigeria. Before the crisis, approximately 4 in 10 Nigerians were living below the national poverty line, and millions more were living just above the poverty line, making them vulnerable to falling back into poverty when shocks occur. The federal government, in minimizing the hardships of Nigerians caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, first and foremost directed the release of grains from the strategic grains reserve for onward distribution to the states. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, working closely with the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA), carried out these exercises with due diligence as it delivered assorted grains and other food items to the states for onward distribution to the poor and vulnerable in the society.
And those grains are also, some of them are in Abuja.
For this exercise, the Humanitarian Ministry received 70,000 metric tons of assorted grains from strategic grain reserves under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, while the customs supplied about 129 trucks of rice and 30 trucks of vegetable oils, among other items. The minister, working with NEMA officials and those from the state emergency management offices, made sure the items were verified before delivery to the states. The Northeast Development Commission, an agency under the purview of the Humanitarian Ministry, also played its role in providing relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. In its area of jurisdiction, which is the Northeast, the NEDC equipped a medical center in Borno to serve as isolation center for IDPs during the crisis. Sadia Umar Farouk commissioned the center.
So we decided, under the guidance of the minister, to provide two facilities.
With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant lockdown, the president gave yet another directive for the immediate payment of the CCT to the beneficiaries across the states, including paying 2 months ahead of what was due to them. The minister flagged off the distribution at Kwali Area Council in Abuja. Thereafter, various states across the nation held similar exercises as the poor, vulnerable, aged, mostly women turned out at various centers to receive the cash transfer from the federal government.
Starting from the poorest communities, was a local government areas.
Still promoting social inclusion, shared prosperity, and providing relief for the poor and vulnerable, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs launched the Rapid Response Register. The event marked the beginning of a cash distribution to 1 million beneficiaries made up of the urban poor made poorer by the COVID-19 pandemic. During the lockdown, the president gave a directive that school children should, under the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, be fed even while at home. The ministry and other stakeholders led by Sadia Umar Farouk modified the school feeding program to supply dry rations to benefiting pupils. About 29,609 households in the FCT, 37,589 households in Lagos, and 60,391 in Ogun, being the frontline states, received food rations for beneficiaries of the National Homegrown School Feeding Program during the COVID-19 lockdown. Each take-home food ration included a 5 kg bag of rice, 5 kg bag of beans, vegetable oil, palm oil, salt, eggs, and tomato paste. School administrators were key as they were used to identify the pupils and their homes. As the parents collected the rations under strict adherence to COVID-19 protocols. The ministry also reached out to other needy and vulnerable persons during the period of the lockdown. Food items and other palliatives were distributed to orphanages and other homes for the poorest of the poor in the FCT and its environs. One of such distributions were carried out at Anawim, home of the poorest of the poor in the FCT, where they confessed that the Humanitarian Ministry was the first to reach out to them during the lockdown. Another set of the vulnerable in the society are the persons with special needs. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, being the body supervising these special group of people, made sure their needs were catered for. The COVID-19 pandemic was a humanitarian crisis of great proportions affecting both the young and the old, economically and physically, the able and disabled. Leading the train of providing succor to the needy and coordinating humanitarian response to crisis, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs received accolades for its role in helping government meet its obligations to the people.
Welcome back. A couple of weeks back on Service to Humanity, we brought you sight and sounds of N-Skills and N-Build trainings from Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, and Zaria in Kaduna State, respectively. In Abeokuta, beneficiaries were trained on bead making and wireworks, while in Zaria, beneficiaries were trained on agricultural technology. Tonight, We shall take you to Abuja, where End Skills beneficiaries for the North Central Zone were also trained in 2 training centers on bead making and wire works, vulcanizing as well as welding and metal works. Please don't go away.
That reservoir is specifically reserved here in it. It's not using fluid, it's using here.
Empowering the Nigerian youths is one mission that the federal government has put in the forefront of its agenda for national development. By coming up with social investment programs that empower the youth, the gross domestic product (GDP) of the nation is improved and crime rates caused by unemployment is significantly reduced. This much was said when the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajiya Sadiya Umar Farooq, officially flagged off the Batch C of the Npower program in August 2021. During the event, she charged successful beneficiaries to make good use of the opportunity to be self-reliant, even as she traced the history of the Npower.
The Npower deploys an online application and selection strategy to ensure fairness, transparency, and credibility in the recruitment process. At this point, I must commend our partners who have helped us in developing this device, that is the 4-core services. The program commenced in the office of His Excellency the Vice President, as we all know, back in June 2016, when the application portal was first opened. Over 750,000 applications were received, out of which 200,000 beneficiaries were screened and selected into the Batch A program. The portal was opened again in June 2017, where over 2.5 million applications were received, from which another 300,000 volunteers were selected into the program as Batch B. A total of 500,000 unemployed youths participated in the program under the Batches A and B.
Issuing the first set of letters to beneficiaries kick-started the journey for about 1 million Nigerian youths under the Batch C Npower program. Following that flag-off, youths have been involved in various training and skill acquisition programs to achieve the goal of economic empowerment and job creation of the Npower program. This is under the N-Build, N-Knowledge and N-Skills component of the program. Yet another batch drawn from various states that make up the North Central Zone underwent training in Abuja and were housed at the Federal Treasury College, Orozo, in Abuja. The 76 beneficiaries were trained on bead making and wire works. Suleiman Mohammed, project manager of the Orozo Center, speaks more on the welfare of beneficiaries of the program in the center.
There is a provision for transport allowance, which in our first registered beneficiaries of about 50, which we sent to the ministry, immediately they make payment for the first set of the transport allowance to the beneficiary as we sent. There is also a provision for the program. It's scheduled for 4 weeks. For every week, there is a provision for feeding allowance for each week. These premises provide us with the accommodation, and I believe there is no beneficiary that is not given an accommodation or that is complaining of anything that has to do with accommodation, because the accommodation is well equipped. There is water, there is light, and there is fan in all of the rooms, and there is no complaint about the accommodation so far.
Bead making is one trade that has provided employment for many and has continued to be the sole sustenance and source of income for most African families. In the course of this training, the beneficiaries were taught to make assorted fashion jewelry such as necklaces, earrings, bracelets, rings, among others. Mercy Haruna Gaga, the trainer for the center, shares with us areas the beneficiaries were trained.
We train them on metal smithing, that's working with metals like copper, gold, silver, brass. But the two metals we used in this training were actually brass and copper because they are easily accessible. And we taught them how to actually form these metals from the sheet form and the wire form to actually form rings, bracelets, pendants, and all kinds of jewelry. And then we also went on to look at beading briefly, and then wire works also, where we got scientific wires that they used to form different types of jewelry.
It is obvious from evidence on ground that these beneficiaries would do exploits in the fashion industry with access to the right tools. Interacting with some of them, they had a lot to say about the program.
Our instructors have been since, like they are very dedicated to their work, so they've made it easy for everyone to understand. They break things down for us, and then also the students on ground, have been very cooperative. I don't plan on ending the knowledge I gained from here just like that. I would like to further it, like going into, and I heard there is an institute for jewelry making, so I plan on going into it and just broaden my knowledge concerning it.
I'm a graduate, to be precise, so after searching for jobs, I did not find one. So after looking at the situation of Nigeria and where I came from, there is nothing like jewelry making. So I started thinking where I could find something to do. So after seeing this opportunity, I decided to grab it, and I decided to apply for the jewelry making and wireworks.
Ina sana'an zannuwan gado, sannan ina lalle kuma ina kiso.
I'm into selling bed sheets, hairdressing, and henna hand designs. I'm interested in any kind of beneficial business. I hope after my time here, I will continue with my business so that others can learn from me. We are grateful to the government for this opportunity. God bless.
Emmanuel Donvui also shares how he has fared during the training due to his visual impairment.
Truly, it's somehow stressful for someone who cannot see. But despite the fact, I still try in order to see that I put in my best in order to learn. That's what we call, I remember one of my lecturers would say that learning with hardship. And despite, seriously, I didn't get it easy. Like during soldering, like that is joining two metals together, is somehow hard for me. But I believe that yes, if I'm being put on again and again, I will know how to do it. Even using the tools for the soldering and then some other things. But for the selection of the colors and other things, I do ask my friends who are having sight in order to tell me the colors that I will use in order for the jewelries to look beautiful.
Hafsat Isaac is another beneficiary living with a disability.
Waɗansu ba mutane suna kallo na suna cewa ai ba zan iya yi ba. Nace duk abin da mai kafa yake yi.
People look at me and underestimate me, and I say, whatever a person with legs can do, I too can do it. So when I came here, I realized I wasn't the only person with disability. We thank Allah that we are not forgotten, unlike before, when we are not remembered. But we have seen our like as we learn in here. As it is said, reliance on oneself is better than reliance on others.
Ance dogaro ga kai yafi dogaro da abaka.
That's our package for this week. Until I come your way again next week, stay safe. Don't forget to send in questions and suggestions to any of our social media platforms or drop a message on the ministry's page on Facebook or Twitter as shown on your screen. See you next week when we shall continue to review major activities of the ministry since inception amongst other current interventions. Bye for now.